Hello, my name is Tomasz Posztek, and in this video I'll make a deep dive into the world of tasks. Now, we can find approval tasks in both Power Automate and in Microsoft Teams, and although you can think that these two worlds are actually different because in Microsoft Teams those tasks are a bit different because they have different UI, then in the end all those worlds, so the Power Platform and Microsoft Teams, are working on the same backend, which is Dataverse. So the Dataverse is the place, is a data storage where everything around the approval task is being saved and from where it is being served then to the end users. So despite those differences, those two technologies are actually the same. So what I'll be now showing you from the Power Automate perspective is going to actually work the same for Microsoft Teams and vice versa. All right. So with that very short introduction, let me just jump into the real content. So basically, when you're starting to think about an approval process, an approval workflow, then the first thing you need to put in the logic of your workflow is obviously an approval. So once you start to create a new action and you type the approval, then you will be shown a group of actions under the approvals. And there you can choose from one of the three actions. The first one is simply creating an approval process or starting an approval process, but it's not making the workflow to wait until it is completed. So you can create an approval process, assign the tasks, and then do some more logic. And eventually, if you'd like the workflow to start waiting for the approval, because you want to depend the rest of the activities in your workflow, the rest of the logic on the outcome of the approval, then you can put the wait for approval action, right? So you can start the process, do some logic in between, and then put the workflow on hold until the task is completed. And then the second option, so to start and wait for an approval, is basically the same, but despite the fact it is assigning tasks, it is already starting to wait. So the workflow is immediately put on hold until the approval is completed. So what types of approvals actually we have? Well, we do have 4 types of approvals. The first 2 are only having approve and reject outcomes. And then the first one is waiting for everyone to approve. So if you assign a task to 10 assignees, then the workflow is going to wait until 10 of them completes their tasks. The second one is waiting just for the first response. So even if you assign it to 10, it will be waiting for the first from them. Then the third and fourth are actually the same as the first and second, although here you can define your own custom responses. So if you need something different than approve reject, like I like, dislike, right? Or just complete it, just one outcome. Then you can use these custom responses, and here you can define one or more custom outcomes. So I will now start with the custom responses, wait for one response. And here I will show you what we can actually do. So I'll just use these 2 outcomes called like and dislike. I'll assign it to myself and John. Here you can as well define the details, so the description of the task using the Markdown language. I'll just type. You can as well provide a hyperlink to a content which is being approved, like a SharePoint list item, or a document somewhere. And under the advanced options, you can as well define different requests to the one who is initiating the workflow, triggering the action. And as well can define either you allow this workflow to send notifications around approval. So this will send an email message to every assignee with an actionable message that will allow them to simply complete their task directly from their inboxes. And as well, if you want to allow assignees to reassign those tasks to someone else. And of course, you can put one or more attachments to the approval. So this is now creating an approval. Now, once you create an approval, there are 3 ways users can actually complete them. The first one is once they navigate to action items and then to approvals. I'll just show it in a moment. The second one is if you enable notifications, then they can directly navigate to their inboxes and work on that actionable messages from their inboxes. And the third one that not so many users or not so many people know about is once you navigate to a Teams group of action, then you will find here an action that is called post adaptive card, but not wait for a response, but just post an adaptive card in a chat channel, because for this purpose, we don't actually need to use this action that is waiting for the response. And now, as a flow bot, I would like to post this adaptive card in the conversation with the bot. I will send it to myself again. And here, as adaptive card content, you have to provide a dynamic content, dynamic output, or dynamic value that is created by the create and approval action. So here you can find one of those outcomes that is called Teams adaptive card. And once you put it, this action will simply send an adaptive card to me. And then if I complete the adaptive card, then the whole approval process is going to be completed as well. Now, if you'd like to create and send this adaptive card to multiple assignees at the same time and simply control how they respond, then I've made as well a video and a content on my blog where you can find out how actually you can create a model yourself that will allow you to create multiple adaptive cards and send them to multiple users at the same time, and then wait either for all or for just first response. But basically, you cannot send the same adaptive card to multiple assignees. Sorry. Now, once you do that, you can navigate back to approvals group of action, and then choose that one that is called wait for approval, so that in this moment the workflow is going to be put on a hold, and it will be waiting until your workflow, your approval process is completed. So now I'll just save it and test it. All right, so now the workflow is running. In just a moment, it has already assigned those tasks. It has already sent the adaptive card to my channel, to my conversation, Microsoft Teams. And now it's waiting. And this is where the very important information comes up. So workflows in Microsoft Power Automate are waiting not longer than 30 days for completion, for the action to be completed. And this is related to all those actions that are waiting for something. So wait for an approval, wait for the response from adaptive card, and possibly there are some more. The point is that because of the of the architectural limitations, the Power Automate workflows just cannot wait longer than 30 days. So after 30 days, workflow will be timed out and will appear on your on the workflow runs history as failed. So to avoid that, you can choose one of the existing patterns to create a long-running workflows. I do have as well an article around that with a SharePoint as a backend. However, there are multiple scenarios that can actually create the long-running workflows. So if you're interested, you can either ping me or you can Google it and you'll definitely find it. Just remember that if you just want to use a straight out-of-box action to wait for approval, it will be not waiting longer than 30 days. Now, it doesn't mean that the workflow after the approval after those 30 days is going to be cancelled or is going to be removed. No, the approvals are going to be stored in Dataverse until forever. So at any time, you can actually use the premium actions to work on Dataverse directly and get the information and complete the tasks directly in there, or simply navigate to approvals under action items, where this task is going to be waiting for the response from the assignee. The goal is, the point is that only the workflow is going to be timed out, and it won't be simply able to continue the business logic after it is timed out. All right, so now once I navigate to approvals, so all those tasks are being stored. Here I have like 3 views. So I have the received view where I can see all the tasks that were assigned to me. So you can see that there is a simple demo approval assigned to me 2 minutes ago. There is as well the view of sent tasks. So here I can see which tasks I have assigned to others. And in here, I'm able to cancel them, for example. So they're like all those approval processes initiated by me, and I can cancel the one I want. And the history, I will see what tasks I have completed with which outcomes, right? So this is like the dashboard for the approvals. The very important thing around approvals is that because, as said, they are being stored in Dataverse, this is happening per environment. So if I navigate to a different environment than the currently displayed one, then I won't have an access to those tasks assigned at that environment. And there is actually no like central hub for all the tasks that have been assigned at any environment. You need to really switch between environments. Showing yourself the approval under action items to see what tasks you were assigned at that specific environment, right? So that's a small limitation or the downside of approvals, but still it gives you a lot of flexibility when creating your business workflows. Now, one as well important thing to mention is that even though that approvals are working on Dataverse and that it seems when a user is creating a task, it is being saved into Dataverse, which is a right operation that actually requires premium licenses. When speaking about the approval tasks, this is not a thing because the right activities are being done on behalf of the Microsoft Flow system user. So this is like kind of a workaround Microsoft made to avoid requiring from every single user who is going to take part in the approval process the premium Power Automate licenses. So remember that for using approvals, you don't actually need to have a premium license. The very basic one, the every E1, E3, E5 for the business premium licenses are enough to be a participant of the approval workflow, approval tasks. All right. So that having said, let me jump into something more important from the administrative perspective, and I will switch into the Dataverse actually, and show you how approval tasks are being arranged, or what is their architecture in Database. The first thing I wanted to mention is that once you navigate to admin.powerplatform.microsoft.com and to environment, you will notice that there are two security roles related to approvals. The first one is approvals user, and this is a role that is actually or should be automatically assigned to every single member of the environment. It is required so that users are able to actually see their tasks. So once they navigate to action items, they are able to see their tasks and actually participate in the approval processes. This security role gives read access to all tables that are taking part in approvals. So as you can see, it is just a read access because, as I mentioned, the write access is being done on behalf of the Microsoft Flow system account. And this way, users are not requested or required to have the Power Automate Premium license. The second security role is called the Approvals Administrator. And this role actually have the full control access to all the tables that are taking part in the approval process. And just don't confuse it. This role is not letting you to navigate to action items and see approval tasks of any users in the environment and then approve on their behalf or reassign on their behalf or cancel on their behalf. No. This role simply lets you or allows you to, or the users who are granted that role, to navigate to Dataverse and then to open tables related to approvals and to work on the raw data. But as said, this role is not like a super user for approvals that can do anything through UI on behalf of anyone. It is just a security role to work with the data in Dataverse. All right. So that having said, let me now jump back to the tables, or maybe not back, but to the tables. So now I'll just try to describe you what happens in every single table taking part in approval. So as you saw, when I was speaking about the security roles, there are like 8 tables taking part in approvals. The first one is Action Approval Model. This table is holding information about every custom approval task that is having, not custom, but about every approval task which is having a custom outcomes. So if you decide to use a different outcomes in approve and reject, this is where Power Automate is going to make an entry with information, what outcomes that specific workflow instance is allowing users to choose from. Now the second table is called the approval, and this is one of the most important tables that are taking part in the whole approval process, because here Microsoft Power Automate is storing the header information about the approvals. So you will find here information about the title of the approval, description, when it was created, by whom it was created, if those two flags, so allow reassignment and allow notifications, are yes or no, and that's it. Now the approval request is a table where Power Automate is going to create an entry per every generated workflow task. So if you create an approval that is assigning tasks to 10 assignees, then here you will find 10 entries per each generated task in that approval process, together with information to whom it was assigned and when it was assigned. Now the approval response is a table where Power Automate is going to create an entry every time a workflow task is completed. So once a workflow task is approved, rejected, or any other custom outcome is selected and clicked to complete, then here is going to be created an entry with information: who created that entry, what was the outcome, and what were the possible comments, if there were any, provided during the approval process. Now then we have three tables that are related to the approval model. So the two first are actually being used when we want to create an approval process which is waiting for all assignees to respond. So here Power Automate is going to create entries related to those instances that are waiting for all assignees to approve. Then under basic approval model is going to be stored only information about these instances which are waiting for the first response. And last but not least is a table called flow approval. Let me just maybe use mouse to scroll down. So here's a flow approval, and that's the second very important table, because here Microsoft, the Power Automate creates an entry per every instance of the workflow with information about that workflow. So here we can find like the workflow ID, the instance ID, and some details about the workflow itself. And if we have an action that is waiting for approval in that specific workflow, then here as well is going to be created like an URL that once requested is going to actually complete the approval and we will complete the waiting process. I'll show you that in a moment, like how this all works together. But first, let me just go through every single action, or sorry, every single table to show you what happens every time something happens in approval processes. So first, I'll show you what happens when a task is created, then what happens when it's completed, then when it is reassigned, and lastly, when it's canceled. Wow. All right. So first, created. So I have created a simple demo approval with two custom outcomes. So now if I open the action approval model table and then navigate to table to the data section, you can see that there are already like those instances. I was testing some with some of them that are having these custom outcomes, right? So like, dislike. And together here, I can find information about the action approval model, which is the GUID of the workflow. So that is where you can find which instances are having what custom outcomes. It is not really useful for us, but I just wanted to show you that this information is being stored in here. Now, the second action, the second table I want to show you and what happens in there is the flow approval. So I'll just navigate to my flows to grab the workflow ID. And then I get this flow ID and navigate to data in flow approval. And then I just switch it to all columns. And when I put here, when I'll start to search for that flow ID, it should be here. We need to load more. Maybe it's not on the first page. Let me just see it again. So I close it and let me make the search again. All right, so they are here. So I have like 2 instances running currently. And let me, for the first round, I'll copy this GUID because that one is called the flow approval. So it is the one that is going to be used across all the approval tables to identify this instance of the approval. So right now, when I navigate back to tables and then to approval, and here again to data, and to all columns. And again, I need to simply load all the data because now that entry I'm looking for might be on a second page or somewhere lower. So I'll just click to load more so that I have all the data loaded. All right, and now if I enter this here, and so what we can see here is actually the information that I showed you. So the title, there is a simple test and approval, the approval title, like who has created that approval, what is the model, what is this customer, what is its current status, and as well the description. So the description for the approval. So that is the second table, or the third actually. Now I will navigate to a pull request as well, because here is again the information for each of the workflow tasks created during the approval process, right? So here again, when I navigate to data, and again to all columns, and then again I need to load more because I believe that, or it might happen that these records related to that approval processes are actually somewhere lower. That should be enough. All right, so there are 2 entries. There should be 4 because there were like 2 instances, every assigned tasks to 2 assignees. Maybe the other are somewhere else, or maybe not each have been found. Nevertheless, the point is that those were created at this 9:33, so it's the first test. And here I can find, for example, that this is a workflow task assigned to myself, and that it has 2 outcomes, like and dislike, and that is waiting and is still active. Now the second one that I should find, there should be more of them to be honest. Like for example, here is this 9:38, right? But that's actually a different workflow instance. However, there should be as well a second entry for this one, because there should be as well a task assigned to general researcher. And I don't know where it is, but it should be here. It should be 4, actually. That is odd. So maybe if I search 12, 20, 2021, 9:23, there is as well just 3. So that is wrong. Well, this one, oh, look, this one is for general researcher. So this all looks that actually they're being mixed. Like this one is visible here, the other one is somewhere lower, or no idea where. Maybe it's just the goal is that, I mean, so if you're unable to find these records, because there should be 2, entries, because one was assigned to general researcher as you saw, and then the other one to me as you saw as well, but I just cannot make them to appear in a single search. So if you cannot find maybe this data, then you can always go to to data. And under data, you can edit data in Excel. So this way you will simply open yourself Microsoft Excel and it will load all the data from this Dataverse table and you can work directly on that Microsoft file, which will certainly allow you to grab all the information you're looking for. All right, but the goal is that when an item is created, what you saw is that an entry is created in all those 8 tables. I will not be navigating to those tables related to await all action model and basic data model because there is like nothing to be shown. The most important information is in approval request, approval response, approval, and flow approval. So, I mean, when you create in 3 tables, so in approval, approval request, and flow approval. So this is where you will find information every time a workflow task is created. So now I'll navigate to my action items and I will complete this task that is waiting since 9:23. So that one. And I will say I like. I didn't put any comment. If I had, then this comment would be saved together with the response. So if I now navigate back to our requests, then here nothing is going to be changed. So I need to now go back to all the tables and enter the table that is called approval response, because this is where once a task is completed, something is going to be changed. So now I need to actually find that task related to this approval ID. Hopefully it's going to be in the first page. All right, that was it. Okay, so I haven't put any description, so any comments, so there is an empty field. However, once I move to the right, I can see that the outcome of this approval has been like, so that is an entry related to the response. And also, if I navigate back to the approval tables and then to the data, that approval, that this record related to this approval should be shown as well as inactive because it is already completed. So search. Here it is. Right? So I see that the outcome of the whole approval process is like, and it is now complete. So here the workflow is done. All right. So now let's do a the third example. So what happens if I reassign a task? So here I have another request from this 38. And I'll choose an option to reassign. And I'll reassign it to John. Oh, I cannot reassign it to John because John already has an approval. So I'll reassign it to Marta. That is another employee in the tenant. Right? So now what happens in that case can only be found in approval request table. So let me just navigate back to approval request. And then all columns. Now, because this is a different approval, then therefore this approval ID is going to be different than the one I was showing you a moments ago. So I need to now find something that was generated at 9:32. No. When it was generated. So I need to find something that was generated at 12. So yeah, 12, 20, 21, and then 9:38, right? That was the moment. That's enough, because I believe that the task that I'm looking for is simply on a different page. So I need to scroll down and do one more search. Okay, there is something here. To whom it was assigned. That was to me. So you will see that to me, but I have reassigned. And there is a second one. All right, that was the one assigned to me. So you can see that I have reassigned this task, so therefore its status now is inactive and status reason is reassigned. And now, if I look for when it was modified, okay, it was modified at 10:07, and I think that there was something at the top which has been modified or created in that case at 10:07. Right, there is something. Show me. So there is a record created at 7:10 a.m. It is, as you can see, assigned to Marta. Right, and as you can see that it's waiting for approval, and here it has this ID related to the workflow from which it was reassigned. Right, so you can see here is a column called reassigned from. And there is a GUID from of that workflow task that was a parent from which it originated. Okay, so that is the third scenario, that reassigned from. So you can see that every time a workflow task is reassigned, a new entry is being created in a pull request table. The original one is set as inactive with the status reason reassigned, and the new one is having the reassigned from GUID and is just a regular workflow task. So now let me show you the last scenario. So when a task is canceled. So I have here this simple pro demo that was generated at 9:35. So I will again need to look for it using this timestamp. And what I want to do now is to simply, I need to navigate to send. And then under send, I can cancel this approval process. Right, so this is 9:35, and then confirm. And done. So it is now cancelled. So in this scenario, the only change that is going to take place is going to be visible in a table called approval. So again, navigate to approval, then to data, then to all rows or all columns. And now I need to again search for something that was created at 9:35. 9:35. Oh, there it is. Brilliant. So this is an entry related to this cancelled approval process. So now if I move to the right, you'll see that again its status is called inactive, status reason is saying cancelled, outcome is as well cancelled. So this is what happens every time a workflow task is actually canceled, right? So the only change that is taking place is in a table called approval, and just the status reason and the outcomes are changed in this scenario. Right, so now the last thing I want to show you is how we can actually use information from flow approvals to automatically complete tasks, because you have to be aware that even if you will do exactly the same steps as I showed you, for example, if you'd like to complete a task so that you create an entry in approval response, that you update a record in approval table, then it still won't resume your workflow that is waiting for the task to be completed. This is really bad, because I was thinking that there is no way to automatically complete pending workflows, even if some approval criteria was not met. So even if, for example, the workflow is still waiting for 5 responses, but we think that the majority who responded actually fulfills our requirements. And then I actually found out that in this table called flow approval, there is a column with URL that once called can actually complete the approval. So now what I want to show you is that I'll create a new very simple approval just to show you what you can, how you can actually complete those workflows really automatically. Just another test. All right. And here I'll just use one action. So to start and wait for the approval. So like everyone must approve, right? So again, I'll assign it to myself and to John Researcher, so that there is more than one of us. Right, and that's it. And last step is that I'll use to compose actions so that you will see the workflow has resumed. And what I will output here is going to be the general outcome. And save it. So simple. So now the goal is that what I want to show you that I can actually complete this workflow and pass the output data to it without actually having all the responses in place. How? That is very simple. I'll show you just in a moment. I just need to run it. Then I need to actually grab its URL. So that is, the instance. And then what I have to do, let me just open it in a second screen, is to navigate to the table called flow approval, obviously, because this is where we can find information about those workflow instances and where is this magical column with the URL. So now I'm going to navigate to flow approval and to data, obviously. And then show me all columns. And with that, I need to simply find the entry for the currently running instance. So it seems it's not on the first page. It is going to be hopefully in the second one. Not even here. Oh, there it is. So as you can see, here is the entry, and now this is the URL in a column called flow notification URI. And now once I copy this URI, and I put it in Postman, just like that. And now, if I do a post request to that URI with the body that is actually the same as the body that this specific action is waiting to receive, how we can get that body? Well, that's not that very obvious. You can navigate to your flows, or you can create like a test flow, then run it, complete the approval, and to see simply what is returned as the body. So, for example, if I navigate to approval tasks test, and then to like maybe this instance which is completed, and then I expand the action, then you can see under the raw data and then the raw outputs. Here you will find the information, what is the body actually for this specific kind of the response, right? So now what you have to do is to like copy this section, just the body section, and obviously you need to change it. So for example, if you want the other responder to be the one who completes the approval, then you need to provide their Dataverse ID plus the tenant ID. Obviously is not going to be changed. You need to as well possibly update all these GUIDs, but that's not really important, because the point is whatever you're gonna pass in the response, in the request body to that flow notification URI is going to be passed one by one to the action. And it will not only complete action, it will not only complete waiting on that action, but it will as well be shown as the response data. The only difference between, let's say, posting that response body which Power Automate is waiting for versus posting whatever you want is that when it meets the expected schema, you will simply be able to choose specific information from this response as dynamic values. Otherwise, you will just have a body and you will need to parse it yourself. So look at that. So now once I hit send, you'll notice that the workflow is going to stop waiting for the approval. Right? You see, it has stopped. Now, under the outcomes, I have all the information that I have sent here. Right? The completion date from the past. Approval and everything is from the past, because this is what I've sent. Magic. So if I simply resubmit it once again, and then I'll navigate once again back to the table, the flow approval table, just to grab the URL again for the another instance. I'm gonna refresh the data. Let's see if I have it already somewhere here, but it looks not. So again, scroll down. Load more. And now obviously this URL is different per flow instance because, well, you simply cannot use it, because in a case that you have more than one running instance in parallel, you would obviously complete all of them, which we don't want to. So now it's 1039. I believe this is the latest URL. Right, yes, that's correct. So right now I have this 1039. No. I need to find the other URL. That one. Okay. So again, now I need to copy paste that flow notification URI. And what I want to show you right now is that if I will put in the response body something different, not thing that is like not the body that is expected, but just, hey, that's me. So that's something like that, and then I send it. Then you'll see that exactly that request body is passed as the response outcomes, as the dynamic values to that start and wait for an approval action. Sorry, it has to be a JSON, right? So what I can do is to say, because it was a bad request. Right now it says okay, so it's completed. And you can see that exactly what I typed into that request body as a valid JSON, obviously, is passed here as the outcome. Ta-da, magic. All right, so I'll just paste it back here, close it. And with that, I actually showed you everything I actually know about Power Automate approvals and Microsoft Teams approvals as well. This is the end of this deep dive session. I hope you liked it, and I hope that you found a lot of interesting and valuable information that will help you to work with your approvals. And just last word about these automatic task completions. That is a really powerful feature that you can use to create such scenarios like waiting only for the majority of the approvals, so that not everyone need to approve, but some like 50% of the approvers to approve on behalf of others, for example, or to cancel tasks and then resume the approval. The goal is that with this possibility to automatically complete approval process, you can actually create any kind of business scenarios that were not possible to be created previously. So just unleash your imagination and let yourself flow with the Microsoft Flow, with the Power Automate. So thank you very much for watching. As said, I hope you liked. Please put your comments below the video, thumbs up, and subscribe to my channel if you want to receive more such awesome information and some awesome deep dive sessions. Thank you once again, and until the next time, bye bye.